Hello, my friends. I'm Debbie Mondale, the Kenny music teacher here in Lakeland with my business, Music Connections. And we are doing some units right now, our Kenny music units, on how do you feel and feel the music. And hey, look what I can do. It's all about being able to become more aware of ourselves, aware of what we can do, aware of our feelings, and how they connect with our emotions and our needs, and being able to meet those needs and learning to act effectively when we have those feelings and emotions, to be able to meet our needs and become our true and authentic self. So this is one of the things, I put together a little slideshow to be able to give you some visualizations of a big perspective of how things kind of work together and how things are similar but separate in some ways. So I'd like to share with you this slideshow. Give me a second. And so we have this presentation here about our social and emotional development. And the first thing that is important with our, they usually say social emotional development. I would say that the development starts with the self and being understand ourself, and not just as a child, but it's a continuing journey throughout our life of becoming, of understanding and becoming our true authentic self, our best and true authentic self. And that's really important for us as parents to understand as our children are growing up, is being able to recognize them for their unique self that they are, and not imposing making them feel like they have to be someone else in order to make us happy, because it's not, we're not helping them become who we want them to be. We're helping them to be the best self that they can be. So that's just kind of where I want to start, is being able to recognize the center of everything is our authentic self. So let me kind of go through a little bit. How do children begin to understand who they are, what they're feeling, and how to respond to those feelings? Of course, they can discover these things best through the joyful interactions with you, with the person who loves them the most, the person who's going to be attached to them, and recognize that, help them recognize their self, what's feeling inside, what they need, and how to meet those needs so that they can get back to being themselves. Now, of course, the ability for self-management, it relates directly to being able to see how they read or perceive other people, and being able to interact with those other people and recognize their needs and their emotions, and being able to interact and have relationships with other people where we can mutually interact with each, and we can interact with each other in a way that helps us both to be our best authentic selves. Do you have someone in your life that you love to hang out with them because you just feel like you don't have to put on any pretenses, you don't have to dress up, you don't have to do anything differently, just show up and they're going to love you for you? That's what this is all about. That's what we want to be for our children, so that they can have those relationships when they grow up, and even as a child, just as they're growing older. And we want them to have that relationship with us as well. Now, these two concepts of self-management and our connection with others are at the heart of social and emotional development. That's what our goals are. They contribute to our self-confidence and our empathy for others and for their needs, and our ability to develop meaningful and lasting relationships, and our sense of importance and value to those of us around it. Not only do we want to feel like they accept us for who we are, but that we have value. We have value for ourselves. We have value for them, and we have value in this world. And the connections that we make are going to help us to become more valuable as we expand our sense of self and our value, and we reach out to other people and help bring them up and bring them along with us. I hope that makes sense. So the first thing that we got to know is, what is our best normal? Now, our best normal is when not necessarily when we're happy. So that's a strong misconception. We feel like, we are always searching for happiness. It's even in our Constitution that we have the ability to seek happiness. And the fact is yes, we do want to be happy. And when we're our best authentic selves, we do have a deep sense of happiness, not just giddy, in the moment happiness. The best baseline that I can imagine, that I believe is the best baseline, is being calm and curious, so that we don't have any distractions that interfere with our curiosity. And our curiosity is going to help us to relate to what we are most interested in and help us to learn more about it and develop ourselves to be the interesting person that we are, and that we are interesting to ourselves and to other people, and that people value us. We talked about that. Now the question is, when you're walking with your child, you have to be aware of your own best normal and help your child be aware of their best normal. And that's calm and curious, so that we can kind of develop together. And everybody's looks a little bit differently. Some children might be calm and curious while they're moving, and some children might be calm and curious while they're sitting and watching. And we can't discount either one of those, because either one of those is a great way to learn. So hopefully that helps give some perspective on that. So here's this, my best, most authentic me. I think I just talked about this a little bit, but I want to start with a visualization of the me, the center of us. This is centering ourselves to our calm, curious self, free to explore and act as ourselves, not as somebody else wants us to act as ourselves. This is the me, the self that we're looking for. I actually need to change that word from me to self. But my needs are surrounding myself. Whenever there's something going on, like if we're hungry, or if we're lonely, or if we are wanting to learn something, but we're not able to be in the process of doing that. Maybe we're bored, or maybe we're overstimulated. That's a need. And that means that we need to have that need taken care of. And when we have a need, whether it's physical or emotional or cognitive, then we start to have feelings. There's actual chemicals in our brain. And I'm going to talk about the chemicals later. I'm not going to detail them here. But when we have chemical changes in our body, that helps us to recognize our need. And then when we have needs, then we have those feelings that come up inside, and we might feel them in our chest, and we might feel them in our stomach, and sometimes we get a little bit confused about where they're coming from, but we just know that we feel them. It's kind of like the crescendo and the decrescendo that you can hear in music, because when we have needs, we can start that little feeling, and if we don't take care of them right away, then those feelings grow, and then we have to interpret those feelings. When we meet our needs, that feeling goes back down. I wanted to say that to begin with. So when our feelings grow, we need to listen to our body and meet those needs, or else they're going to get bigger. As soon as we meet those needs, we're going to reduce that feeling inside of us, allowing us to be our authentic and best self. So let's look about that, the feelings and emotions. Often we call these the same things, but feelings are what we feel inside, and emotions are how we interpret those feelings. You can see that it just goes, it doesn't necessarily have to be a circle, but it does surround us. And when we have those feelings, we interpret, maybe on the inside, we might be feeling something strong, and we might be thinking, oh, maybe I'm feeling, maybe my emotion, or maybe what I'm feeling is hunger. And so then we feed ourselves. Does that help to reduce the feeling on the inside? If it doesn't, then maybe we've interpreted it incorrectly and we need to come up with a different plan. It's like, maybe I'm not needing that. Maybe I'm not feeling well. My physical body needs something else. Or it could be an emotion that we're having from our feeling state, from our heart. We might be feeling lonely. And sometimes we can misunderstand our uncomfortable feelings as something that is not what our need is. We might feel like we're sad, or we might recognize that feeling in our child, that we can feel that they look like they're sad or they're angry, but what they really are is hungry. And if we just take care of that hungry need, then that feeling will diminish. Sometimes we can meet one, maybe sometimes we can have multiple feelings at the same time. We might be feeling sad and hungry and angry, and then we just have to kind of continually interpret those feelings and decide what it is that we need or what our emotions are, and try to be able to meet those needs. Because if we're feeling lonely, we need to connect with someone else, and we might need to be able to get a hug, or we might need to call someone and talk to them. What is it that we're going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do that's going to be able to help us to reduce that feeling that's on the inside so we can get back to ourselves? Our emotions are what help us interpret those feelings. And we are going to explore through the idea of exploring, or through the actions of exploring, and the interpretations that we have and the experience that we have. We're going to get better and better at being able to interpret those feelings and decide what emotions they are. We might think that someone is shy, and that feeling is shyness, but actually it could just be overwhelm, and they just need to sit back and be reduced from the situation a little bit more. They're not necessarily shy. Shy, I don't think, is actually a emotion. It is a label, and it is a label that kind of goes along with multiple different feelings, especially overwhelm or separation. So need for separation. So I'm going to get into all of the details for that, but you can see how feelings and emotions are a little bit different. Now, of course, the green that I've added to this is the way we act. When we have a feeling or an emotion, when we have a feeling and we interpret it correctly as an emotion or body need, then we act on it, and we make sure to be able to take care of that need so that our feeling subsides and we can get back to being our best selves. Now, sometimes bad behaviors that we consider bad behaviors are just the child's way of acting, or our own way of acting, that is supposed to help us to be able to meet that need. But the way that we're acting is not the way to be able to meet that need. But we don't know a better way to meet that need. So that's part of the guidance and the training that we have, is being able to interpret it effectively and being able to have effective actions that will help us to be able to reduce those big feelings on the inside, or change those big feelings into feelings that are going to support our inner self to be able to be our best self. Because part of the things that we need is to be loved. And when we need to feel loved and we feel an absence of it, and then we get that love, then we can have a strong feeling in us that absorbs into ourself and helps us to be our best self. I hope this makes sense. Our emotional connections, our primary caregiver attachment. A child feels like when a baby is born, they are actually needing to have someone be part of them. They are attached as one. They consider the person who is working with, the person who loves them most, the one who's meeting their needs, all of their needs, not just their body needs, but also their needs for love and for the stimulation for their brain. They consider that one person. And I'm going to go into this a little bit more. But when they have that person with them, then they realize, okay, my needs are met, I am safe, and I am loved. And that's critical to all relationships in life. And when we can feel that, then we can help others feel that as well. I think I'm kind of going to go on the needs now. There's multiple different types of needs I've kind of talked about, but we have needs for our body, and we need to be able to breathe, of course. And when we can't breathe, then we have to meet that need and be able to breathe. And sometimes our emotions make it hard. Our feelings inside make it hard for us to breathe. And that is another indicator of something that we need. And therefore, we need to figure out what we can do, to how we can act to be able to meet that need so that we can breathe better. We also have a need for water. I'm going to go over these quickly. We have a need for food. We need so that we can nourish our bodies. We need to eliminate, because those are some of the worst feelings if we need to eliminate and we can't. We just need to interpret that. When we get into toilet training, that's interpreting that feeling that's inside and being able to act on it so that we can reduce that feeling. It's kind of more of a physical than an emotional aspect of it, but it's really a lot the same. So we have the need for sleep. We have to have we need to be able to move. If we cannot move, then our body is not able to thrive and we can't be our best selves. We have a need for safety. When we are not safe, then our body kicks into its survival mode. And that's when we go, we're going to talk more about brain states, but that's when we go into our survival state. And when we're in our survival state, we don't have time for our emotions and we don't have time to meet the needs of our brain. We just have to fight or flight or hide. So those are some of the main things that we do if we do not feel safe. And we need, even if we are safe, we need to feel comfortable. We need to feel not too cold, not too hot, whatever our comfort level is. And whoa, that gets into our body sensations, all of our sensory experiences. And we're going to talk about that another time. But those are the needs of our body. Now, our heart, our emotions, these are we have a lot of needs with our emotion. And now that's the middle part of our brain. It's the second part that is developing, but that's the part that is helping us with our emotions. And that's actually, we're starting to be able to get some speech going on in there in connection with that. When we're in our survival state, we can't actually put words to anything because we don't have time for words. Our brain, the chemicals that are in our brain do not allow us to be able to have cognitive thought or even words for it. So that's why when we get into our emotional brains, we have certain emotional needs to be able to have that part of our brain. We feel safe. Now we need to meet the needs of our emotional brain. And that means that we need to be surrounded by unconditional love from at least one other person, that we can be loved no matter what, no matter how we act, no matter what our emotions are, no matter what our feelings are. We just need to know that somebody's going to love us no matter what. And if your children are really good around other people, but then when they're with you, and then they can, they start having some bad behaviors, please understand that a lot of times that is because you have taught them what they need to do to be able to have a good relationship, and that they can let their guard down and they don't have to work so hard to be able to get your love. They know you're going to love them anyways. So the loving touch is another thing that we need. Babies who do not have loving touch, research shows, and this goes with a lot of animals as well. If they don't have touch, then they're not able to thrive. They do not get what they need for the emotional center of their brain. So we need to be able to rub their back and to touch their arms and give them hugs and rub their feet, and just generally play with them, holding them. Every time we are engaged in loving touch with our children and fully focused on them, then they're being seen and they're being heard, and they're seen with their eye contact, and they're being heard because we are fully paying attention to just them. That is some of our playful activities that help them to fill the emotional centers of the brain so that they can move from their safe and loved into their thinking and creative curiosity finding. They also, to be our best selves, we have to have some semblance of joy in our interactions with other people, because if they're always critical, or if they're always angry, if there's always a lot of harsh feelings with the people, or just even intense feelings, then it's we're not feeling the joy, and the joy that we have with our children, the playfulness that we enjoy with them, which is one of the reasons why music works so well, is that this joy and playfulness allows us to become our best selves, which is one of the reasons why I do what I do, that I help teach families and children how to playfully interact with each other, so that we can build up their emotional self and their emotional sense of self, and the joy that they have in interacting with other people. When they have this joy interacting with you, that they learn how to have this joy in interacting with other people, which is a huge part of our social and emotional development. And of course, we talked a little bit about being valued. That is part of our sense of self. That's a part of our emotional needs, is to feel like other people value what we have. And when other people value, we can value ourselves. And the more value, the more we do this and build this, we are becoming bigger and bigger selves as part of ourselves, and more resilient to other outside influences that might affect our feelings and our emotions. And if we do not have our emotional self, we don't have an emotional sense of self that is strong, then it might diminish who we feel like we're not valued, and we're not valuing ourselves. And very much other influences can make a bigger difference on how the feelings that we feel inside, and the emotions that we're interpreting, and how we're able to meet our needs. So this is huge, being able to meet the needs of our heart, put it that way. The connections that we have with other people. So of course, we have our cognitive. This is our higher brain functionings. This is, it's always developing, because as soon as a baby's born, the neural connections are wide. The brain is creating so many opportunities for neural connections, and they are looking for being able to make connections in their brain by moving. Their eyes need to move. Their head needs to move, their shoulders, their arms, their body, their legs. That is our progression of how we move, and all of the ways that we move are training our brain. We're developing connections in our brain between our dendrites to be able to say, oh, this is what I can know now, after I practice and practice and practice and make sure that that's the way it is. We're looking for patterns that we can predict. When I move my arm, I see my hand move. All right. Every time I do that, I'm moving it. That's what babies are doing. They're looking for connections. They don't realize this out here at first is part of their body. But the more they move it, the more they see it, and they make that connection. Oh, that's me when I do that. I love it when they get that interest factor going on, and with their hands and with their feet. But of course, our brain is always looking for patterns. One of the patterns that is so critical for us to be able to have for the cognitive sense of it is that when we act, that something's going to happen. When we cry, that someone's going to come and help us to interpret our feeling inside and help us to meet our need. That is an emotional as well as a cognitive development. All of the emotional traits are also going to be developing pathways in our brain. And so we want to be able to help them to see those patterns. They learn a lot just from moving, and they can teach themselves a lot. They're building connections in their brain all the time. But as we connect with them, we can help build patterns, like routines in their day. First, we wake up and mommy says hello, and I get a hug, and we get the diaper changed so I can feel more comfortable. We get fed so that that feeling inside is being met. And so when they realize, oh, mom's here, I can predict I'm going to get fed. Right? So that way, when mom arrives, they've connected it, so they don't necessarily need to cry until they get fed, because they know that that's a pattern they can predict. So once we get patterns that we predict in our head and we can go, okay, I've got that thing, I know it, but I still need new things to learn. So that's why we have to have unique and interesting stimulus. That's why we put things above our baby's crib so that they can watch it, because watching it is moving their eyes and they're able to see patterns and they're able to still build more neural connections that are going in there. And as we grow, it's really important. Some children have a stronger need for moving and a stronger need for stimulus. My daughter had much more need for stimulus than my son did. My son was very happy to learn by watching and by doing in a calm way. And my daughter had to learn through having a lot of things that she could maneuver and work with and get her hands into. And even as a baby, she needed to have me interacting with her more because she had a stronger need for interesting stimulus. And perhaps when they don't have patterns that they can predict, then they have a stronger need for stimulus because they're looking for those patterns. And so if we can have some nice routines and patterns that help their brain to be calm, then they're not looking so much for more stimulus, because the need for more stimulus is often the need to be able to find more patterns that make sense and help calm their brain. Oh, that makes sense. Communication and language is also a critical part of our cognitive development. Of course, as babies, we don't understand words, but we do understand communication. When we have babies, we're communicating with our eyes. And so our eye contact with our baby is not only letting them know that they're being seen, but that they're being heard through our eye contact. And that we're watching what their face looks like and what their body is moving like to be able to help interpret the feelings that they have inside so that we can help meet their needs. And as brand new parents, we don't have a clue. I don't care how much training you've had. I felt like I was like totally prepared to be a parent when I had my first child. And as a brand new parent, there's things that you can know more, but we are learning about that child, and it is brand new and it is fresh. And even when you have a second child, you might think you've gotten this down from the first child, but really we're starting over from scratch because we have a brand new authentic self that we're working with, and we're trying to help to understand what their needs are. It's very fascinating, the process of being a parent. I wouldn't have wanted to live my life without being a parent, because I don't feel like I would be my true authentic self if I didn't have children. Part of me, I wasn't expecting to choke up over that, but it's true. I wouldn't have been who I really wanted to be in life if I hadn't have had children and learned from the experience that I have had in having my children and letting them be their authentic self, no matter how strange and crazy it might seem at times. So, anyways, it's a beautiful thing being a parent. It's a beautiful thing finding your authentic self and knowing that your journey is continuing in being able to become who you want to be and who you're meant to be. Some of our other needs are some of our societal imposed needs. So we do not necessarily need these as far as our body and our emotions and our brain, our body and our heart and our brain. But to be part of the community, to be part of society, there are things that are imposed upon us. Now, they might be imposed at first, but being as part of the community, we are going to have these needs to become part of our own needs. And that's the only way we're going to do them in the future. Some of these imposed societal needs that to be part of a community is wear clothing. Some babies don't get that. Some adults don't get that. But anyways, We wear clothing to protect ourselves, but we also wear clothing that is acceptable as part of the community. But it is also interesting that clothing can be part of discovering our authentic selves, and we have to experiment with that. Just because your child is wearing superhero outfits every day doesn't mean that they're going to wear superhero outfits for their life. Just because your teenager is dressing up in black and wearing black lipstick and dyeing their hair black doesn't mean that that's the way that they're going to always be. That is an experimentation to help them discover their authentic self. They might find aspects of what they learn in there, like bravery from their superhero-ness, or uniqueness from their gothic design. They're exploring their more emotional selves and their feelings of uncomfortableness, and they actually get comfortable with those feelings of uncomfortableness. And that's actually a really good thing, to become comfortable with our uncomfortableness, because that's what helps us to recognize it, be calm about it, and act on it so that we can meet our needs. I'm getting a little carried away. The ability to clean up is not one of our basic needs. It's like a relative thing. You know, if we were in caveman times and it became too messy for us to be able to live, we'd go find another cave, right? So cleaning up is an imposed societal need, but when we do it and we're part of it and we experience it and we feel the calm of what clean feels like, then that can also become one of our personal needs. And it's typically more of a cognitive need, because that way we're not distracted by all the clutter. And it's also a body need, because if we don't clean, then our body gets sick, and then that puts us in a really bad situation. So cleaning up is not necessarily what we consider as one of our needs, but it's an imposed need that we learn over time. But if your child is not interested in cleaning up, it's because they do not see how it relates to the personal needs in their own body. They don't understand how it's going to make them sick. They don't understand how it's going to affect them cognitively or emotionally if it's not clean. But when they live in a clean place and they help to be able to make it clean, they do go through that stage where they're interested in putting things away and taking things out. And when they learn that when we put things away, then we can find them, and then there's not too many things to distract us, then that helps us to make it a personal need. But that's something that has to be trained to be able to help it to be part of a personal need. Toilet training, same thing. We have the need. We were in our diaper, you know, the baby's in their diaper, they just go, they don't understand anything else. And for us, who really want them to be potty trained as soon as possible so we can not deal with the diaper stage anymore, your child is going to not recognize that as a personal need. That's a need for somebody out. That's a need that other people are imposing on them. And so when they are ready for it, there's a stage that their brain opens up and their body is ready to be able to do that. You just got to watch for that time. And that is the key factor in being able to help them to become toilet trained, is because their body is becoming more aware of how their body functions and what that need is and how to be able to act on it effectively. Being on time is not something a child understands at all. There's some adults that don't understand that as well. But that's another societal need. It's just an example. I think that you can kind of put the pieces together now about how some of the needs that we don't necessarily have as innate needs, they're not our natural needs, but as part of a community, we learn how to have those as part of our needs so that it can help us to be calm and curious and to relax. Because I can tell you for a fact, if I don't leave on time and I'm late, I'm full of anxiety as I'm driving to be able to get to the place where I need to be. And so it is now a need that I have accepted as part of what I need to be able to leave in enough time so that I am not feeling that big feeling that I have interpreted as anxiety. And if I leave early enough, then that meets that need. So I don't have to have that big feeling, and I can get to my place calm and curious and ready to interact and curious about the people that I'm going to be interacting with. I hope this makes sense. Right. Social and emotional development. Many skills for our body and our mind are developed through our own actions. Daniel Levine wrote a book, A Mind in Time, and he talks about the ways that we experiment and explore in our world, and the things that we do in our environment teach us a lot of different things. Even if nobody interacts with us, a child, they will figure out how to get up. If they have the ability to move, they're going to be able to figure it out, how to be able to get up and walk. They're going to be able to figure out how to move their fingers. They're going to be able to figure out how to clap. We don't need to teach them these things. But, and as they grow, Maria Montessori is a critical person who recognized that with a prepared environment, children can teach themselves math. Children can teach themselves cooking. Children can teach themselves all kinds of different things. It's just that you have to have an environment that lets them explore. That's one of the reasons why some of these outdoor activities where children can go and interact with other children in an outdoor environment, even if you're in your own backyard, when you're experimenting with nature, you're learning a lot about life and about how the world works and what physics occur, because we're learning the action and the reaction, and we're learning the movement and how it affects different things, cause and effect. But there are things that we need guidance for, and that was one of the things that he booked, A Mind at a Time, is what he was talking about, is that our social and emotional skills, awareness and skills are not something that we can just teach ourselves. It all comes in our interactions with other people, and it starts in the interaction with that attached person that we have in our life. These have to be gone through guidance. Now, the community skills like toilet training and things like that, they need guidance, but it's through consistency of figuring out our worth to self that makes those more important to us. But anyways, just so as you know, they just don't develop on their own. And you are your child's best teacher because you are the attached person. Some people say, oh, they'll learn social and emotional skills when they go to preschool or when they start nursery. But every child's social and emotional development starts with you. And if you don't think that you're doing well at that job, it's okay. No parent does, actually. So trust me, you're not going to feel like you're doing it right, but you can continue to learn. You do the best with what you know in the moment, and then when you learn more, you do better. It's all good. It's just a matter of learning and becoming our true self and helping them to become their true self. There is our goal overall is to be able to act effectively, to meet our needs so that we can be our best authentic self, right? To be able to understand the feelings that we have inside, to interpret them as emotions, and to be able to reduce those feelings so that we can be calm and curious and ready to interact with the world around us and with the people around us. When we are our best self, we can relate to other people in the same journey. We can say, oh, I see the face of that person. It looks a lot like the face that I have when I'm sad, and the body looks the same way. And I can see that they're feeling like I felt. And I know when someone else gave me hugs, then that made me feel better. That helped to reduce my feeling. So maybe I want to give them a hug. Oh, it's such a beautiful thing when we can start to see our children empathizing with other people. If your child's not empathizing yet, that doesn't mean there's a problem with them. Just different children have different different children have different needs and different abilities that are innate within them. And some children are kind of born more empathetic. And even if your child isn't empathetic, it doesn't mean that they can't learn to be empathetic. But being able to help them meet their own needs is critical for them to be able to see how people interact with them to meet the needs, so they know how to interact with others to meet their needs, recognize and meet their needs. And then we can mutually meet each other's needs, because we're not always needing to give up our needs in order to serve someone else's needs. We need to make sure that we have our own needs met, as well as meeting the needs of other people. And that goes for us as parents. Self-care is not necessarily like taking a hot bath. Self-care is recognizing what our need is and being able to be calm. One of my self needs is to be calm, is to have a clean kitchen, because it drives me crazy if there's just all this clutter. It also drives me crazy that nobody else is doing it. But when I am calm, when I meet my need for recognizing that I'm having a big feeling of an emotion, sometimes just cleaning the kitchen helps me to reduce that feeling. If I feel like I'm doing it too much, then I recognize my need for help. And that's when I can relate to talk to others in my family, or that I can say, okay, look, let's work together to be able to get this clean so that we can have calm, so that we can both have calm in our household. So that is some of the goals that we have, and how we can meet our needs and recognize the feelings and interpret our emotions in order to act and meet our needs. I am going to talk about some of these other slides another day, because I think that I've really kind of gone over a lot of these issues as they are. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to thank you for your time, because I think that I actually did a lot more time than I expected to, but I hope that you found it to be an interesting perspective, that we can kind of see where we're going with our social and our emotional development. Thank you so much for your time. Oh, and this is all just the way I'm putting things together. If you have a different thought, I would really love to know what you would add to this. Is there one of the needs that I didn't meet, that I didn't add in my thing? Is there a different perspective? Do you have questions about what I've said? I would love to talk with you. So let's get together in some format and be able to have some conversations about this, because the best way to learn is to talk to each other. Say, oh my goodness, I'm having a trouble with this, or wow, I don't understand that. I don't have all the answers. I've read a lot of books. I've talked to a lot of people. I've been to a lot of conferences. I try to be able to, sometimes when I learn something, I'm like, yes. And then I go to try to implement it with my children. I'm like, how did that work again? It doesn't seem to be working the way I thought it was going to be working. So this is a journey, folks. As so many people that I've talked to said, this is a journey, including Becky Bailey with Conscious Discipline, because I got a lot of what my perspective is from listening to Becky Bailey and the Conscious Discipline. But this is a conversation. This is a journey that we're all on. And if we can do it together, then we don't have to do it alone. We can do our own social and emotional development by connecting with each other and then seeing how we can make these ideas work in practice and make it work with our families. So I look forward to talking with you, and I'll talk to you very soon. Thanks. Have a great evening. Have a great day.